Sorry, that's just anti-trans.
Yeah, we're going to move on for now to the 24 genders thing, which apparently Scotland has decided there's 24 genders. They've listed 24 of them in official guidance for public bodies, including terms like gender fluid for those whose identity regular changes, and gender queer for people who see themselves as neither fully male nor female. Anyway, yeah, so Talk TV, I think this is Ian Collins and Peter Tatchell. So let's have a look. Yeah, autism gender, that's in here. I'm autism gender, obviously. Anyway, let's have a look.
Let's look at this story coming out of the Scottish
Suicide gender. I'm hoping so. To me, the lack of representation for suicide gender people would be extremely concerning if it wasn't in there.
National Party, of all places, facing criticism for being disconnected from the real world following the release of...
What? No one's ever said that about the SNP. What are you talking about?
...of new guidance to public bodies which claim...
All trans people feel uncomfortable in either a rape victim or rapist way. Jesus.
There are not 2, but 24.
You know what I found funny? I looked it up. I'm sure it's probably on one of my videos, so I'm not going to spend very long on this. But like, where is it? Was it here? There was a list of them. Yeah, here we go. What's the longest one on here? So we've got 3 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. This one actually has 3 lines. This one's actually a bit longer than any of them. But like one of the only ones with like 3 lines of like thing is fucking cisgender. Like that's the hardest one to explain, or at least one of them. Anyway, this website is fucked already. So let's keep going.
Genders. Among the identities listed are gender fluid, referring to individuals whose gender identity...
I swear I can like literally hear like these kind of right-wing commentators and stuff. I can tell when they're reading something out that they think is ridiculous, but they're like really trying to not sound like they think is ridiculous, or at least not yet. Rapist is anti-trans. You're so over the gender conversation. I mean, in a lot of ways, me too. But I don't know. You get kind of swept along with a lot of this shit, whether you want to or not, if you're trans, unfortunately.
May change, and gender queer, which describes those who identify as something beyond male or female, or a combination of both.
I mean, I'm very white gender. I don't know about anyone else.
And there are 22 others on the list. Let's speak with human rights activist Peter Tatchell. Peter, afternoon to you.
Hey, he's back. It's Tatch. Here we go. Peter Tatchell. He's the one that's going to bring some... He's going to bring some sanity to us.
Listen, you've always been an incredible campaigner. I've said this to you many times. I think on the issue of gay rights, I don't want to be...
Oh, hi, Sylvia. How you doing?
...glib and say largely solved now, because there's still work in progress, but, you know, a million miles from where we once were. But this is different territory, isn't it? This isn't similar to gay rights. This is, you know, a bunch of people with too much time on their hands making a bit of mischief.
Well, you know, we shouldn't generalise. Let's see what he says.
And making words up.
Well, first let me say that obviously the priority of the Scottish Government should be the cost of living crisis.
True, yes. Good start. Here we go. Peter Tatchell. He's still got it. He's still got it. I just haven't been seeing it lately. You know what I'm saying?
Education and healthcare. That should be the priority.
Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, this shit like affects almost no one. Rita Panahi. I've seen the odd clip of her. I don't know if that kind of thing is a bit too far in one direction for me. Dan and Keogh spent 20 minutes reading out all the protected genders in Ireland. 72. Oh my god. People were saying about 72 genders before, and I saw TRAs theorizing that it was something to do with like the 72 virgins or something, and that it was racist. But it's actually 72 genders, maybe. I don't know. I'll try and find that.
It's fair enough that they should try and, you know, accommodate the different diversity in our society. Now, in my view, there are only 2 biological genders, male and female.
Well, it's not there's 2 biological genders, there's 2 genders.
Plus, there are some people who are intersex. That means they have a mixture of both male and female attributes.
Not really how it is. Intersex, He means DSDs. DSDs covers more things than intersex. And it doesn't mean you're somewhere between male and female. It means something's gone wrong in your sexual development. Usually, right as it starts developing, a chromosome will either duplicate itself, like Klinefelters or something. You'll get there was lots of other stuff. Just stuff that doesn't happen that should, and makes you end up suffering the effects of that DSD. And yes, they're still male or female. So DSDs do not disprove the binary. He calls himself an ally, and yet he doesn't have an updated LGBT flag. True, that is making me trust him very slightly more, though. Like, it doesn't have any ugly chevrons, just OG rainbow. That's fine. I'm not gonna shit on him for that. You know what I mean?
When it comes to gender identity, that's an identity, not a biology.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure, to be honest, whether there's 4, 24, or 64 different gender identities.
Here's my view. There's 0. Your identity is just what you think of yourself. You can come up with whatever fancy thing you want as being your gender identity, but it really means nothing. A lot of these gender identities, like gender fluid, your identity regularly changes. Your identity is going to change throughout your life, just in general, you know? Peter Tatchell's face always caused me to have PTSD symptoms. Are you remembering what Frida Wallace's skirt looks like? Is that why?
124.
Find themselves in lots of different ways. I'm not sure it's necessary for public purposes to know everybody's gender identity, but there may be. So rather...
Okay, but people insist on fucking going on about it constantly. I don't think gender identity is really a thing. I think it should be like, well, I think you have like a self-identity and like your gender's part of it, but then people just make this kind of weird stuff up because they can. Like, that's how I see it.
Than list all these, I think the important thing is, if you're in doubt, ask someone, and then they can define themselves. But this is not the same as a biological definition. It's different.
You're right. And I think if somebody has...
Oh, Sky, you watched him talk to Andrew Gold. I actually, I didn't do the whole thing because it was fucking long as shit and I started getting quite tired, surprisingly enough. But I covered a bunch of that. It was interesting. I'm not a big fan of Tatch, if I'm honest. But compared to the kind of shit that we see nowadays, calling itself activists, then, like, fuck that shit. Oh, his face. I guess so. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to not say things about people's appearances. And anyway, I don't know. People can make fun of my dirty hair if they want.
I've always taken a fairly, liberal approach to this. If somebody says, I want to identify...
My poet was on Andrew Gold. Yeah, I don't know what to think about her. I probably need to watch something, like, off stream, maybe, because I'm not really sure how it is with that person.
As something. We can have our own personal views on that. Nobody wants to be horrible to somebody and give them a hard time. That's not kind. But simultaneously, I don't know whether every form or every official body or government building needs to acknowledge someone's idea of their own identity, do they? I mean, that's not being unkind. That's just being practical.
It does feel a bit like asking someone what their favorite color or favorite animal or something is. The other thing about, like, the gender identity stuff is if someone comes up to me and they're like, hey, I'm X gender, to me it's like, that tells me nothing. I don't know anything about you. If you start telling me things you like and stuff like that, then I know more about you than if you tell me what your gender is, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a trans woman, what does that mean? It could mean lots of things about me. Maya Poet is a rag grifter IMO. Possibly, I don't know. I'm not commenting really because I just don't know enough about them. I interact, I think, occasionally on Twitter because they say the kind of things that bait me a little bit, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, I think the problem with this proposal is that it does impose a lot of extra work on government and other public body officials.
Yeah.
And at a time of a cost of living crisis, I'm not sure that's a good...
Do you think he'd make this argument if there wasn't a cost of living crisis? I mean, this is a lot better than the Andrew Gold conversation, in my opinion. He's actually kind of suggesting that this is like luxury belief bullshit, which it is, 100%. I don't even care. I'd rather we focused on the cost of living than went on about genders or trans people or what the fuck else ever.
Expenditure of time and resources. Of course, the amounts spent involved in this are very tiny, but even so, every penny counts. And my first thought are pensioners and unemployed and disabled people, people who are struggling financially in the cost of living crisis. That should be the priority. When I go through that list myself, I'm struggling to be able to identify and define each of those different gender identities.
Yep, because most of them are fucking meaningless. And some of them are like literally just cis again, or literally just trans again, or literally just non-binary.
People, of course, can define themselves how they wish. Those nuances are fine. But whether public bodies need to know this is as you say, questionable.
Hey, what happened to Tatch? Maybe got another bonk on the head and became sane again. I don't know.
In terms of healthcare, it may be necessary to know, for example, if someone is trans, because if they present as female but were born as male, they may have lingering male-related health issues that will carry on after they've transitioned. So that's an important factor that health services may need to know.
Do you know what autigender is? Not auto, auti. A-U-T-I. No, I don't. We were trying to, nobody knows. We were trying to work it out. But clearly somebody, Peter, somebody wrote this list, so they must have got it from somewhere. I mean, if you don't know, you know your way around kind of campaigns and areas that I would reasonably suggest perhaps come in the Venn diagram here. But I wonder where or how they took this list and how it was put together. I know that I looked at a list out of San Francisco a year or so back, and it was a completely different list to that, and it was a lot longer as well. So, I mean, someone's identity is up to them, but it's not the business or...
I wonder if Tatch has always had this kind of stance on, like, the exotic genders kind of thing,
needs to be the business of anybody else.
Well, yeah, I don't know how long it took to do this. Probably it only took maybe half an hour for someone to tot up this list.
Maybe.
But the idea that public bodies need to record all these different nuances of gender identity, I think is probably not necessary or relevant. And my concern is that it just could risk alienating the public. The public want government and public bodies to spend their money wisely on...
True. By the way, if you ever wonder why people really hate things like Sweet Baby Inc. when it comes to like video games and stuff, it's because people don't want games company paying out like money for someone to come in and tell them how to make their shit more woke. They want the game to be better. Quite simple.
On good quality public services to help those in need, and in particular to boost education, housing, and the health service. That's got to be the priority. And, okay, if you've got time, you can look at this, and that's fine. But I don't think it's helpful to impose it on public bodies and government departments unless it's really strictly relevant and necessary to the job.
Okay, Peter, I think that's fair enough as well. Peter Tatchell, thank you. Human rights.
There we go. Actually pretty smart there. Maybe I'm a bit more of a Tatch fan. A lot of editing coming up. Yeah. all the time.
Activist. What is fascinating about all of these kind of stories is that surely it is impossible to meet a sane person who thinks any differently to that. Would there be, is there anyone? I mean, I guess when...
I don't know that anyone even does think differently to that. They just like, oh, well, we need to respect people's identities and stuff, or why do you care? And it's like, well, if you care about the truth, then there you go, You can disregard most of the sort of debate bro types straight away, because, this shit actually affects people, believe it or not.
I don't know, when the SNP concocted this list, they clearly felt at some level that there was a desperate need to list these genders, and somebody might have even said, well, if you're going to write 24, according to some people, there's 124. So that would be bad. The kind of people that would happily compile such a ludicrous list would surely be open to that list being, well, as long as anybody wanted to make it, by definition. This is the problem. This is about identity politics, and
it's about identity politics, but the identities in question are just things that people made up. It's not even like id poll when it comes to like race or something like that, you know?
Part of me thinks, as the world has addressed racist issues, homophobic issues, and clearly not everywhere and not all over the world, but you know, many of those issues I think reasonably suggest, and the problems surrounding things like racism and homophobia are unrecognisable to where this world, this country was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I think we can all agree on that. And yet, you could read quite a lot of headlines which will tell you it's even worse. I mean, I constantly hear people describing and talking about, you know, the Black Lives Matter issues and racism as if it's 1978 or as if it's South Africa.
Yeah, we need to pretend there's still issues, I guess. We need to... Those kind of people that deal with these kind of human rights issues, they still want a job, they still want to be doing something. So even though we've solved a lot of shit, they'll just, you know, run down the list. The problems get more and more minute and not worth really caring that much about. Our beliefs get more and more luxurious because, I don't know, leftism is pretty much fucking dead. So yeah. We keep them in charge and we pretend that they're still doing a good job, when what we're advocating for now is things like this shit, which transsexuals don't want. I bet even some non-binary people don't want it because it is overkill. Yeah, this is what happens.
In 1968, or Mississippi in 1950. I mean, the list goes on, and you think, really? Where is this coming from? I mean, Matt, I thought we were beginning to solve. Well, where it's come from, really, is social media. And social media gives this very sort of visual echo chamber and sort of makes it look like what you're seeing there is a mirror to the society, when it's not really. It's sort of really a cesspit, a kind of playground of hyperbole and nonsense, where people who animate in that kind of way are a very tiny majority of the human gene pool and don't represent anyone you ever met, generally speaking, whatever it's about. I mean, the woman that did I mean, she might have got a ridiculous prison sentence who set fire to hotels with people in it. I mean, do you know anybody who would write that? I don't. If one of your mates did that, you might want to take that down. So that's what's happened, and this whole industry has kind of popped up. And
Hi, Bernardo. So I call myself a trans woman. To me, a trans woman necessarily is male. I refer to myself as a male because that's what I am. Really, I don't mind what anyone calls me, though, if that helps. If that's still confusing, just let me know, I guess.
Left-wing thinkers have gone, we've now got to, we've got to protect identity. They're seeing this identity battle in the same way as people like Peter Tatchell saw gay rights back.
Yes, because people are constantly being like, oh, this is just homophobia microwaved. I'm sure Peter Tatchell has said the same thing, you know what I mean? This is just homophobia microwaved, which it's not. Like, we don't live in the times when gay people were particularly, put upon. It's not the AIDS pandemic anymore. You know what I mean? It's not the fucking 70s or some shit. And apart from anything else, being trans and being gay are completely different things. So, yeah, it's bullshit when people do that. And the correct answer is to not let people get away with it. To say that you're talking about a completely different issue, that we're talking about trans rights, not gay rights right now. You know, that sort of thing.
In the 1970s and 80s. They're seeing racism in the same way that Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks saw it in 1960. So that's where we're at in this respect. That's why we end up with these lists. We've got to respect people's identity. No, I don't give a hoot about someone's identity. You can call yourself whatever you like. You can dress whatever you like. You want to like a turnip, a Christmas cake, I don't care. You can do that. If you're a bloke that likes dressing up as a woman, that's totally up to you. but I don't think anybody else has got to acknowledge it, change it.
True, he's right. I agree with this person. Is it Ian Collins? I think yeah, Ian Collins. Yeah, I agree with him on this.
Anything, alter their language, their words, form filling.
The truth is, you don't have the right to anyone else's words, or you certainly shouldn't. I guess in some places, like in Germany now, you kind of do, because you can sue people for misgendering you because your hairline starts about here, but you insist on calling yourself a woman anyway. But yeah, you shouldn't. People shouldn't have the right to other people's words. That gets dangerous very quickly, you know.
Special rooms and spaces, or allowing you into other people's rooms and space. We haven't got to do any of that. Just allow people to identify. If you want to do it, fine. But these characters are they're so riled up by this, and they really believe that identity is up there with race and sexuality.
Well, with sex, I mean, it overrides, it trumps sex to a lot of people. I don't know how, but whatever makes you feel better about your existence, I guess.
Comes to issues that need injustices attended to. And that's the problem. And they get the weight of quite a lot of politicians and organisations behind them, because on the face of it, it sounds like you're being kind. We just want to respect everybody. Yeah, you can still respect everybody.
Well, the trouble is, like, trans people still need, like, support and stuff. There's still stuff that's difficult. You still have a long wait to get seen to transition if you're in the UK, for example. So it's a tough one. But then, I don't know, the worst thing is it puts trans people themselves in such a shitty situation, because it's like, people don't want to stick up for you because they'll be called woke or called a lefty or whatever. But, you know, you're still people. And plenty of trans people aren't even like woke or a lefty or a fucking gender abolitionist or whatever the end goal seems to be of all this.
I don't know anybody who wants to be unkind about this stuff. I don't want to beat anybody up or embarrass them in the street or anywhere else for that matter. But I don't want to rewrite the English language or anyone's understanding of.
I'm surprised this is still going, quite honestly. Like, we should have learned from all like the pregnant people kind of shit, all this like gender neutral language that never goes anywhere. No one wants it. It's the same with they, them. You'll get called it by like all your queer friends and stuff. But what happens when you go out into the real world? People don't know you're a they. People won't even see if you have a fucking pin badge on there saying they, them, especially when it's surrounded by loads of other pin badges. Like, you gotta be realistic. You gotta understand that what you're doing is something that's been developed in an echo chamber that has sped off in the distance because there's no normal people to kind of rein it in at all.
Fact and logic, right? That's just a nonsense.
Ian Collins, Peter Tatchell, I agree with both of them. I think that was pretty good.